I'ma kill you in a second if I have to. Use my mind as a weapon when I blast through. Put the basics in the basement, no need.
All right, guys, welcome to the episode 17 of the PT Performance Podcast. This week, we are joined with Richo.
Hey guys, how are we going?
What's up, Richo? Nate's running a bit late, and
That's a lie. He's not running late. I kicked him off the show. His forehead was too big, and we couldn't get anyone else in. So, in order to be able to have guests, he must go, and he's done. He's out.
Backup forehead right here.
Yeah.
So,
so Nate's officially out, and we're better for it. So, the guest, Manny, take us from here.
Moving right along then. We've got a guest with us today. It's Mr. Brad Dawson from Dawson Insurance. Brad, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite.
No worries. Now, a bit of background is Brad is a first and foremost, I guess, he's a member at the gym. I've spoken to Brad on and off quite often, I guess, over the last 5 years, and it was only recently in general chit chat that made the connection with Brad's profession. And that I'm sure he'd be sitting on a bit of knowledge and a bit of information that would be handy to our audience and our network. So, Brad, thanks for coming on, mate. So I'll get you to just do a bit of an intro to the listeners and to Richo as well about what's going on and who you are and what you're all about.
Sure, mate. Yeah. G'day, Richo. How you going, mate? All good?
Very well, thank you, mate. Very well.
Good on you, buddy. You want me to do an impersonation of Nate yet, do you? Like I'll come in and do these ones and all that. too soon for payouts. He hasn't even met me yet.
Very good.
Yes. No, thanks for the invite, guys. I really appreciate it. Like Mooney just said a second ago, I met him about probably 4 or 5 years ago, just at the gym. Met him at the desk there or walking around. And we'd sort of bump into each other and say g'day. And yeah, like you said, it wasn't until a couple of weeks ago that he realised that what I did, because I don't walk around and brook about it. I find it's a bit imposing to just walk around and try and sell people insurance. So mate. So Dawson Insurance is the name of my business. Love the fitness, love the industry. But congrats on the 17 podcasts. Did you say, mate?
Yeah, episode 17.
Good on you. And now on iTunes too, hey?
Yeah. A couple of meatheads, we're doing all right.
Stepping up in the world.
How good's that?
There's been a couple of glitches along the way, so we've probably shot ourselves in the foot and could be at 20 by now, but we'll roll with 17. Good. So, Brad, is something that I guess a lot of people probably may or may not make the connection with an insurance broker such as yourself, mate. What do you do for fun? What's your hobby?
A couple of things. I mean, apart from fitness, I try to visit the gym at least once a day, do a bit of yoga and stuff like that as well. But some years ago, I started doing a bit of motorsport, and I've got been riding dirt bikes and stuff for years. But yeah, started doing a bit of motorsport rallying in the forest, bush rallies on the mid-north coast, like Coffs Harbour, that sort of area. Love it. It's a lot of fun. It's an expensive hobby, but it's a lot of fun. I don't do too much of the driving, mostly co-driving these days. I find that it's, if you know good, don't do it, eh?
It's always someone else's fault, then, isn't it?
It's easy for me to just sit there and read the book and say, left and right and all that.
Were you inspired by Colin McRae rally on the PlayStation?
And if you say no, you're lying, but continue.
Who wasn't inspired? That guy was just awesome, awesome. You'd see him on the TV and his accent, you couldn't understand a word he was saying. But man, that guy could drive.
It's the reason Subaru WRX made to Australia was PlayStation's game.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, like there was a Colin McRae rally and. Yeah. I mean, some of the racing games now are so sophisticated. Like, I've not had a gaming console in like 15 years, and I splurged and got one for myself for Christmas. And I got a steering wheel and one of the rally games because it had the Australian Rally Championships in it and the World Rally Championships in it. And they're not 4 pixels per screen now. There's a lot more than 4 or 5 pixels a screen. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of fun.
Well, listen, man, let's get into it. The reason I got you on the show, mate, is because obviously the theme, or for the most part, we're speaking to personal trainers that are within the early days of their career. The initial theme of the show was to help them them survive, help a personal trainer survive the first 12 months in the game by not making a lot of the mistakes we did make, and that we see other PTs continue to make in 2018, even though they've got all these fucking resources out there telling them don't do dumb shit. They still seem to do it. And in saying that, we just found that the more we spoke, the more other areas we've sort of identified that we could be sharing and helping out people with. So one of the questions that comes up annually, if not every 2 years or thereabouts, is someone will say to me, I need to do my insurance. Who do I go through? You know, a few years ago, there was only one or two options. You needed to be an affiliated member of your Fitness Australia or one of those mobs and go with the generic insurance company they had. Much how the old compulsory third party used to be with your car. You know what I mean? You just renewed it because it was fucking attached to your rego. Now there's options, right? There's more options out there. We'll talk in this episode about the need, yes or no, of having to align with an insurance company that requires CEC or continual education credits. And we'll talk about, within your scope as best as we can, what potentially is or isn't covered in the role of a Cert 3, Cert 4 personal trainer, especially in the first 12 months. And we'll take the conversation from there, dude. So
sure.
Let's get this one out of the way first. And for those listening and for those watching, let's not misunderstand what we're about to say. Is continual education credits, CECs. They are a requirement for some insurance companies. They are a requirement for some registration membership groups, Fitness Australia, yada, yada, etc. I am 100% in support of continued education, professional and personal development, and making sure you're not sitting on your ass thinking your Cert 4 is it, and the only education you're going to take is the bullshit you see on Instagram or YouTube. Okay, even though there's some great content out there, the people that I'm talking to, you aren't fucking looking at the right stuff, you're looking at the dumb stuff, right? So with that disclaimer in place, do I feel that the insurance companies that require CEC as they are developed and produced now are worthwhile? Or if someone is savvy enough and smart enough to go on their own educational journey and find their own courses relevant to themselves, can they find themselves a decent and ethical and robust insurance company and insurance policy?
Short answer is yes, they definitely can.
Awesome.
What I have found is that over the last, say, 5 to 10 years of me in the industry, there used to be only a select few insurers, like you would say, all the ones everyone knows about, like say QBE or say Suncorp or Vero or Zurich or Allianz. These companies that most people would know these names just because you see them thrown at your face on the TV for, for car and house and flood and all that sort of stuff. Because of the fluctuating prices that these companies have, obviously insurance premiums go up, go down. There's a lot of these other companies which are called underwriting agencies. So they're agencies which are set up in Australia and overseas, which have authorization. They're an authorized underwriter. So they're an approved local, I guess, insurer, which has a pen to be able to write their own policies, in which case they usually do scheme type policies. One example is for a PT or anybody, a medical indemnity type policy or anything. And these type of policies are becoming readily more available. Even now, I think the last time I checked, there was something like 60 underwriting agencies in Australia that can produce professional indemnity policies. Not necessarily just for the PT, or the fitness industry, but in general. So there's a lot more available now.
Okay, yeah. Cool. So, so I was still sort of stuck on that one. So basically what you're saying is you have the choice now. It's no longer, if you've got an insurance company, they say, look, we'll cover you for the most part without digging into individual policies. But for the most part, if they say we have an insurance policy that covers personal trainers,
yes.
Is it going to be any different to another insurance company that covers personal trainers that demands CECs to be at a certain level?
Yeah, no, not really. You can sort of have it either way. The only thing that I would suggest is, and I would suggest this across the board, is that policies, whether the insurer requires you to have CEC or not have CEC, and there's plenty of both. What I found is,
so that's on the PT to establish that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
There's trainers in my fitness gym that have these type of policies that aren't. It's not mandatory. It's not a mandatory requirement for them to to attain these points every year. But it's something that I think that, like you said before, if someone is investing in their future and this is their chosen career choice and they want to be a PT and fitness is their industry and they're going to use their time, it's probably best for them to, like you said, not just sit on their hands once they've done the Cert 4 and just turn over the Instagram stuff. No, they need to continue to learn, and to learn perhaps study a course they want to learn in addition to the Cert 4, not something that they have to do every year.
And we had an episode a couple of weeks back where we talked about what are some courses we would recommend. And I mean, personally, for a first 12-month PT, we covered a bunch of them. I would much rather a PT go and get a small business / MYOB course, a nutrition course that Richo's big on, the guy in the UK.
Mac nutrition, yeah. Unfortunately, the problem with most of these things is, like you said, there's no points attached to these ones.
Yeah, and so that's what we're saying is if the points aren't as relevant now as they were 15 years ago, then instead of spending $350 on the 10 best exercises to use with a half deflated fucking Swiss ball, surely we could go out there and go, guys, spend an extra $200-300, but you're going to get some relevant qualification from it that's going to improve your business, but also provide a much better service to your clients than using a fucking Swiss ball to a assisted squat against the wall.
Absolutely. I agree.
Stuff because it was it was like one of 4 options I had when I first did mine, and the other 3 weren't much better. So it was,
The good news is that, like, the insurers, I mean, a non-CEC required insurer or underwriting agency, their only stipulation I mean, unless it's specifically excluded from a policy, in which case you have to read it, and a bit like the Apple agreement, fucking no one's read it, So unless you read the policy, then you're not going to know if it's excluded or not. But the good news is that the non-CEC insurers that whether they that say you don't need to do these types of trainings or these types of further education, they're pretty normal. Like, say, if you have a claim or a potential claim, you go, somebody's injured themselves and he might have been under my care, custody, and control, and I'm concerned something might happen. We've done our best to try and help this young lady, this man, whatever the scenario might be. There's a claim. The insurer investigates it, tries to help you with everything. The good news is that as long as you've made a sustained and diligent effort to maintain your qualifications, stay relevant, and not just get your Cert 4 12 years ago and then done not a single bit of training since, other than trained clients, 20 clients a week, plus some online courses or something like that. As long as you've made a diligent effort to try and maintain or be relevant, stay to the industry standard, not be the guy in the gym that everyone goes, oh man, this guy, all of his clients get injured. Like, as long as you're not that guy, you're going to be okay. But again, it comes down to maybe having someone like a broker, or like me or anybody else that is a broker. There's plenty of them out there that will give you good advice on a policy that will cover you adequately. Yeah,
great. And I think that's a good one to make as a point there too, Brad, is that we talk about building a network of professionals around us as personal trainers, so that you've got people to lean on. Now, we talked mostly about the allied health industry a couple of weeks back. Find a physio or an osteo or someone that you can resonate with and you can send your clients through. But from a professional development point of view, a broker, insurance broker, is certainly someone you'd want to know, because I'm not going to read that shit, to be honest with you. I want to go to someone and go, I've got this company. Who have you got? Who do you recommend? Or here's my requirements. What do you got? And that's what you do. It'd be like you asking a personal trainer about fitness training and mobility stuff. That's their field. So
that's not my field. Yeah.
In
most cases, sorry, mate, you're.
I was just going to say, if you guys are listening, get yourself an insurance broker when it's time to renew. Go have a chat to one. Brad is a good one. Obviously, we've got him on the show, and we'll link ways to connect with him after the show. But like we always say, if if it's not viable, if it's too far and it doesn't connect, whatever, find one. Find one. Obviously, I'm going to recommend Brad because he's a good dude and all. But if that doesn't work and you're in Tasmania and you've got no internet, fucking find one in Tassie.
Yeah. There's lots of online resources where you can find good, reputable insurance brokers. Like the National Insurance Broker Association has like a postcode locator that can find reputable insurers and their rating systems and things. So you can find someone that other people have taken the time to recommend or not recommend, whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's like you said, it just makes sense to have someone read that stuff. I mean, and they'll look at the entire market for you. If you want, they'll come back to you with a dozen quotes and be like, well, these are the 3 I'd recommend, but this one is better for you for this reason. So yeah.
But there's been a bit of talk in the industry lately about insurance companies not covering things that I guess us as personal trainers would expect to be covered for, such as squats, deadlifts, heavy bench press, more sports specific movements. Is that is that just us not reading through the policies, or because, I mean, I know it's a little bit more different now, but definitely back in the day, these are the ones that the fitness companies are recommending and telling us to use and that are registered with them. So, I mean, what's the go there? Like, if the fitness industry is that we have to pay to be a part of is telling us to use these insurance things for our fitness industry, and then if something happens, it turns out we're not even covered, how does that work? Do we need to be more diligent, and do we need to read into it more ourselves, or get someone like yourself to look more on behalf of us? Sort of where does that lie with us?
I think your last suggestion there makes the most sense. Being a bit more diligent with it. A lot of people don't read their policy, and they just at the time they panic and they don't realize that what they thought was covered, in fact, actually wasn't covered. From the policies that I have read and provided to clients, it's pretty clear straight up. You can see, which insurers provide you with the right cover and which ones have what they call exclusion. So they might exclude, like you said, 1 rep max squat or something like that. Just because,
if you're a powerlifting coach, that's obviously not the right insurance for you.
No, I mean, just you're spot on. So the way the insurers look at it is the occupation. If your policy says personal trainer, and all you do is just like squatting, you're going to have to tell them, because you're not just, if you're just helping powerlifting people, it's not necessarily just a traditional personal trainer. You're a powerlifting personal trainer, so it's a bit more specific. But and I don't want to name any names for the larger training organizations and the ones that are seen to be more respected in the industry, but like a lot of things, sometimes they don't have your best intentions at hand when they're recommending certain things. As an example would be insurance. So they say, well, we recommend you take this policy with this insurance broker because they have a scheme policy. Whereas you think, perfect, I'll go, yep, this is the one they recommend. People your whole life, you might have worked in the trade or something or whatever, and someone has said to you, this is like, someone recommends you, where to go? Yeah. You think, this is perfect, I'll go here. And so you go there, and then you go to make a claim, and you realize there's a whole mess of exclusion. So by taking just a couple more minutes, and sometimes there's not even a higher premium for a much better product, and you don't have to go with the industry pushed, products. Yeah.
And I think you mentioned it earlier, Brad, when you call it a scheme policy, right? So you've got X amount of people in the group, so they get preferred pricing. Now, let's face it, no one's doing anything for free, especially in the insurance world, especially in the membership fitness world. So you'd imagine they'd go, well, we only educate them this far. So all you need to do is cover to this level. And then I want you to do that level at the best possible price you can do. So then they're going to say, well, here's the higher risk potential in that field. Let's not cover this. Let's not cover this. Let's not cover this. And we'll cover the most of these people, of which in 6 months' time won't need the fucking policy because they're back washing dishes or working at the 7-Eleven because they sucked and they failed at the other aspects of the shit that we're trying to improve them on, right? So
absolutely.
Don't believe the hype. Go looking for your own, get some advice outside. And I think the best thing to do is, if you're a personal trainer listening to this and you're about to renew or you're about to get your first insurance, cover yourself from the high end and work your way back from there. So I'd say, are you ever going to have someone potentially do a 1 rep max squat? Get that shit covered. Even if it's only used once in your lifetime, you got that. It'd be a shit thing to find out later, to find out that's the one thing you can't cover for. because potentially that could be the thing that fucking ruins you, your business, and potentially much more around you, I guess, in case, including the other person's life. Let's not fucking forget for a minute, we're covering ourselves with our insurance, but we also are dealing with other humans and we don't want to fuck them up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the whole thing is that you're in the health and the fitness industry, and you want to make sure that your clients, and even if it's you're a new trainer and it's your first clients and it's your first month, and someone gets injured because you're trying to do one rep, squat with them, they get injured, you're not covered, which means they're not covered. So they can potentially sue you. Not only have you lost that client, it's going to affect you, probably mentally too, because you think, you're going to think you can't do it, and it's going to give you,
reputation could be shot, everything.
Yeah.
And I want
all these
to
things.
point out, we're using the extreme examples of 1 rep maxes, but if it's deemed to be
there's a lot of stuff not even
open
extreme that's not covered,
mate.
Some of them are just
thinking of
that aren't covered.
I'm thinking of like most functional training workouts. Like if they deem
100%.
that to be sport specific, and someone's doing bounding on diagonal ladder drills and they roll their ankle, potentially that could be deemed sport specific if your coverage is not correct, right? So you just got to look at what you're doing. We always talk about work within your scope. I think insure above and beyond your scope so that you've got room to grow into it. And obviously if you're re-educating and you're growing your knowledge base, you might, at month 1 through 6, you might have this as your capacity, but 6 through 12, you might have gone to a course and picked up some more skills and you want to implement that. You want to make sure you're covered for that too. Yeah.
I think this is probably the time where all this sort of stuff is most relevant, because everyone's trying to make a quick buck at the moment. So it's not uncommon that people will deliberately, as bad as it is to say, deliberately injure themselves so that they don't have to work ever again. I guess you've always just got to remember that everyone, at the end of the day, everything's a business. Universities are a business. These fitness, obviously, once we've been in the industry a while, we have our own takes on what we think about Fitness Australia. But, they're all businesses. So like we talk about, at the end of the day, they're all out to look after their pockets. So exactly like we said, they're recommending someone, and they're recommending someone because it's the best for them to recommend that person, not the best for you. So as much as you just would probably gloss over this when you first start, it's definitely not something to gloss over. You definitely need to speak to someone like Brad, or take the time and do the research yourself, because this can come back to bite you very badly, and not just in your PT career, but for the rest of your life. If you're going to pay someone back $1 million over your lifespan, well, good luck no matter what job you're doing, mate.
And that's a real thing too. Like, if you're a go-getting young guy, young girl, or whatever age you are, you have some assets. And if you've just started these are things that need to be recommended to you by an accountant. So just to let you know, I'm not an accountant. I can't recommend this to you, but there are certain ways you can.
Disclaimer, mate.
Well, how do you do that? Is it this? What is the hypothetical? This is hypothetical. So the hypothetical is that if you just are a sole trader, as an example, you have an ABN, but you're a sole trader, so you're technically still classed as an employee, but a small business employee almost, and you own a house with your partner, whatever the scenario is, or by yourself, and you're sued, you don't have the right insurance, that house could be gone. Like and I'm not trying to be the fearmonger guy. Like, I'm saying that if you don't structure your business properly from the start, have a company, it costs a little bit more to get a company, even set up a little trust, you can really protect yourself and indemnify yourself should something bad like that happen.
And we're gonna elaborate on that down the track. I'm in the background working on a package essentially that covers all that stuff with a small business guy who specializes in tax and law and stuff. So that's something we will get out there at some stage, because I couldn't agree more, man. Sole trader, nice, easy, turnkey kind of situation, but fuck, you're open. You're open to some bad stuff if anything does go against you. Now, that's what I want to go with, Brad. You may or may not have a story or an experience to share on this, but if you do, I'll ask anyway. Have you dealt with anyone in the fitness industry that has had a bit of a nightmare claim go against them, or perhaps they did, but the insurance had them covered, or anything similar?
Yeah, I have. And it was was it in late 2016. He is based in Charlestown, down in Newcastle, in New South Wales. He had an incident where it's difficult to sort of say now because it's still ongoing, but I can't give specifics. But there was security cameras involved, and this guy looked as if he injured himself, but a bit like swing and a miss. It didn't really look like he injured himself. The good news was, like, he rang me, he was panicking, and there was a decent insurance policy. It was his first year. It was his second month or his third month as a trainer. And luckily his dad was already a client of mine, and he just said, just go with Brad. And we had this guy injured himself apparently quite bad, but he didn't go to work that day. It was just anyway, it's ongoing, but these couple of years later almost. And the scenario was that he dislocated his knee and his ankle. He walked into the gym and apparently did it uneasily, and then walked over to the, I think he was on the chair. Yeah, I think he was just doing chest work that day. It was chest day. It might've been Monday or something. Anyway, he's gone to do some chest, and then he sort of said that he's rolled his ankle and hurt his knee. He was getting up off the bench, and then he's thrown a plate around. It just looked like nonsense, but this guy was terrified. And yeah, the insurance policy had defense costs included. So some policies do, some policies don't, where this guy sued straight away for $900 and something thousand. His annual income was $42,000. And it's just nonsense, right? So these types of things just happen where you've got someone that's just picked someone that they think
exactly
it'd be easy to
like
have a
what I
lend
was
on.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Exactly
So I
like what I was talking about. So if you think of this doesn't happen, I mean, Brad just put it.
I thought I'd get Brad to talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh, it happens. It happens. Yeah. So that's still ongoing. The guy's still, pretending to limp around, and so it is what it is. But yeah, no, it's fine. Some policies have a cost exclusive excess. Some have an exclusive. That means that, you may have to pay an excess even just to cover your defense costs. In this case, as all policies I provide, I make sure that I give the option as first option to not have to pay an excess for defense costs. So if someone, maintains that you've done something that's damaged their personal property as accordance with your advice or poor guidance or whatever it might be, the insurer can step straight in and their lawyers can take over for you. It's just much easier.
If it can be done, Brad, what's some ballpark? What are we talking? What would let's say you didn't, and again, I know it can drag out the cost of the course and the law and the issue, but ballpark, what would defense costs be on average, do you think?
Well, this guy's brother-in-law is a lawyer. So as a scenario for this guy, he has unlimited use of this lawyer, right? But my client doesn't have any. So at the moment, we're up to I think I got an email last month. I think the court costs were, the defense costs or the lawyer's cost, just the facing up in court because he's trying to take them on legally, obviously. But he's not been able to demonstrate any documentation because he keeps saying that he's unwell to travel to court 8 or 19 months after he dislocated his knee and ankle, right? It was like up to like 410 or 415,000 or something like that, just in defense costs.
So for those,
this guy hasn't got a cent out of it. This is just defending our client.
So that's what I'm saying. So for anyone listening so far, this client of Brad's would be potentially up for $400,000 just to defend the case before any kind of outcome or payment or result of being sued is added to that, right? So $400,000 to say I didn't fuck up. This guy's a clown. Now, what would the excess be? Should they have taken out the cover that would have covered the defense cost? What would the excess likely be?
Oh, they started about 500, 1,000. But I mean, the better the policy,
sure, the higher it's going to be.
The higher the excess usually is. No. No.
So again, guys, you're out there. Do your due diligence. Look at an insurance broker. Don't just go with what's on the web. have a look what works for you. Get them to ask deeper questions on what it covers. Let them know your full scope and what you want to grow to be, so that you can cover all that shit. You get it all, make sure it's all packaged up in one. And as Brad's just highlighted or illustrated now, if getting cover for your defense is an option, fuck, I would take that. It's like having the excess on your car. Like when you go rent a car, how many guys have rented a car and they go, "Do you want the excess protection?" And you go, "No, thanks." And then you get in the car
but the
while you're
excess
checking
is
out.
$4.5 grand.
Oh, wait a minute. If a guy hits me with a shopping trolley, I'm up for $4,000 straight away.
Yeah.
Shit, I'll run back in to do my $20 a day excess, you know? So for those young fellas and ladies out there that are thinking about this, excess cover, get some sort of excess is going to be 10 times better than the actual cost, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And absolutely. When someone starts out their business, it's really a great idea to have a mentor or someone that you can look up to who's in the industry, or someone that can help you identify the potential costs in an industry when you start a business, so you can calculate the potential cost of insurance, tax, if you're going to be GST registered straight away, all these other costs that are going to come into it. I think insurance, people don't necessarily budget for it. I even look at insurance as it's a pain in the ass to pay for, but it's a necessary evil, because even just yesterday, I parked my car and came back and someone slammed into the back of it. And I was like, and they didn't leave a note or anything. I'm like, oh, well, it's fine. I'm glad I have that policy, just to save $400 or $500 a year, So it just makes a difference,
Yeah. Oh, that's good, man. Richo, have you had any experience around again, obviously we're not asking this question to out anyone or whatever, and you can use hypotheticals or fake names, but Rich, have you had any situations before where someone's either had a win or a loss as a result of their insurance or a claim?
When I was at Good Life, the problem with when it went from Phoenix to Good Life, it became a publicly listed company. So what that means is now, once people try and sue, they can just keep suing up the chain.
Yeah.
So I have seen a lot more cases of people suing, and it actually fucked with my work, because they had boxes that we could jump on. So obviously do a bit of sports specific stuff, doing explosive training, box jumps. So this brand of boxes, do them where they have Velcro, obviously, so you can make them higher, the better you get at jumping. So some fucking sped from Melbourne, one of the PTs tried to jump a height that he couldn't jump, didn't make the jump, fell back and did his coccyx, and then sued his own workplace, his own Good Life.
What?
Because he wasn't athletic.
For hurting himself. So then, of course, Good Life have to show that they're doing everything they can before it gets resolved, to show that they're going to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Reduce risk, yeah.
So then they have to tell us that now no one else in the entire country can jump on boxes more than this fucking big because of this retard. So, and then the problem is, what happens is, obviously that's different because he's suing straight to, but if someone was to pretend that was one of my clients, then they would sue me. Then if that doesn't work, then they try to sue Good Life. Then if that didn't work, I can't remember who they're owned by now, but at the time I knew that it was Art and Leisure. And then if they couldn't sue Art and Leisure, then they go to Macquarie Bank. And if they just keep trying to sue up the chain. And it gets to the point where all these big all these publicly listed companies, I mean, their excess, let alone mine, their excess is $25K a pop every time their lawyer just has to write an email. Yeah, so most of the time they're just going, look, since it became a publicly listed company, there was an awful lot of just ridiculousness. Like stuff that you used to laugh about when you'd hear it in the States. I mean, like when you heard about at McDonald's, the little kid spilled his drink and then his own mum slips on it and then his mum sues the Maccas and she wins. Or the guy driving the Winnebago drives it, puts it on cruise control, goes out the back and has a coffee and he crashes and then sues them because it didn't say cruise control, doesn't actually drive the Winnebago for you. I mean, we used to laugh at that shit, but I mean, now it's happening in gyms. It's happening in gyms. Like there was, I know of one where, I mean, you know how treadmills are set up and obviously you walk on the fucking path behind the treadmill. Someone left a treadmill running, So to get to one of the end treadmills, this person was walking across the belts of the treadmills. Obviously, one was going because someone hadn't turned it off properly. Gone, and they said, like, I'm sorry, but if you're that retarded that you're walking across the belts of the treadmill, anything that happens to you is yours. Just fair game.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not how the world works anymore because, I mean, they'll just side with the moron. But, I mean, let me tell you guys, it happens and people will sue for the stupidest shit and they will do it because people want something for nothing.
Yeah.
So if you think that you're not going to have people sue for the most absurd things or you are very much mistaken. And someone who you think, I mean, as a PT, we like to think that we build pretty good rapport with the people that we work with. But let me tell you one thing: when money becomes involved, you watch someone change in the blink of an eye. So,
and they won't even flinch. They'll look at you and go, "Nothing personal, mate." But that's what insurance for. You know, like. Brad, give us an idea, mate.
So it is definitely worth taking serious, guys. And it's one of those things where like everyone's going to go, yeah, it happens, but it'll never happen to me. Let me tell you, you don't want to be the person, like we said, who's giving up their house and paying back $1 million over the next fucking lifetime.
Yeah. Just
because you thought it would never happen to you. Because let me tell you, the way the world's going, it's only going to that chance is only increasing day by day.
100%. And now, Brad, for those that don't understand, an insurance broker basically searches for the best policy. You might have your preferred suppliers, for want of a better term, but you look around and find the best deal to match your client or a couple of best options, right? What would you say in your experience with your current PT clients? What are they looking at? What would a year's insurance cover look like?
Well, just to answer part of the question you had at the start there, an insurance advisor or a broker shouldn't have a preferred list. As far as the word preferred, as far as the word preferred goes, it would be the ones that they have researched to provide the best claims or the best underwriting support, perhaps over the last 12 months. That's the only preferred they should have. Other than that, it should totally come down to what is best for the client. And nothing else, you know. And that's
cool. That's good. Thanks for
option.
clearing that up. That's kind of what I meant. So that's good. It's you're not on the books to anyone. It's what literally is the best for your client.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great.
So, and said that of the question you asked me fall out of my tiny little brain.
So the next part was what would the price? What are we looking at? What's an average?
Oh, right. Yeah. So the annual premium. Yeah. So the couple of things that the insurer, it's difficult to just give an accurate representation of what the premium will be.
Sure.
The insurance market changes every year. Having said that, the scheme rates for the larger insurers that have, like I said before, say 2,000 potential PTs that go for one scheme rate, like through a large training facility or education facility that says, say use this policy. But having said that, some of them are, do have rather ridiculous exclusions on them that quite honestly shouldn't be there because that's your industry and that's what you're doing for your clients and customers. Yeah. But the way in which they'll charge the premium is based on the following. So they don't necessarily worry about what kind of business structure you have. What they will look at is what you do. So if you just say personal trainer, they'll take that to mean as a basic Cert 3, Cert 4, whatever it is, personal trainer. That's how they'll look at it. That you train at a gym or you have a home gym and you have customers or clients that come in and they train with you, and that's basically what you do. Mm-hmm. They'll take that into consideration. They'll also take into consideration what your projected, bit ambiguous to ask this question of PTs for their first 12 months, but their annual turnover. So they don't look at the profit. They don't look at anything else. They look at so if you've got 100 clients and each of them, they look at basically what you take in your business before you have any expenses. That's the turnover. And that's how they can justify or rate the risk of how risk or, whatever you might be, how many customers you basically have or clients you have. Then they also look at if you have any staff. I know that in a previous podcast, you guys had some questions from one of your followers about having subcontractor PTs working for PTs. If that's the case, they'll take that into consideration as well. If that person is an actual staff member, like a PAYE staff member, then that will be covered under the policy, usually automatically, as long as you've told the insurer about it. However, if that person is a subcontractor, has their own ABN, whether it's a company, whether it's a whatever the business structure is, if you have someone that works underneath you, they take that into consideration also. It's number of staff, turnover, and what your occupation is. That's it. So premiums, for a really basic one, sort of start at, I guess, a couple of $100 a year for the okay sort of policies, and they sort of go up from there. Having said that,
considering we just talked about the potential for issues down the track, you'd almost be doing that just as your role to say, look, there are options at this rate.
Yes.
But you're probably covering tying your shoes and putting the towel on the bench for the client, and that's about it on those ones.
Yeah, and it definitely comes down to, I mean, like I said before, as long as the insurer isn't one of the CEC insurers and they don't require you to have to do basically the ongoing training, sure. Whilst you and I both agree that that's probably something that they should do anyway. If that's your industry, that's your career, that's what you should be doing, continuing to train. The insurer is pretty reasonable in most cases. If you've done your insurance through an advisor or a broker that's adequately looked and sourced your policy properly, if you have a claim, they'll just look at, okay, as you've told us, a personal trainer, as a general personal trainer? And is this person, or does the potential claim affect you, or affect them in the basis that you're providing those services as you've told us as just a basic personal trainer? If the answer is yes, it shouldn't be a problem. If the answer is no, it's like, okay, actually, no, I was coaching, the Gold Coast soccer team. That's not personal training. Some of these guys might get paid. You're looking at a much different exposure, and therefore you're now a coach, really, more than just a personal trainer.
Exactly, and that's why I want to bring this up, because I know I did it when I first did my Cert 4 with it before. Again, I was pretty fortunate to have a pretty business-savvy mentor that got me out of that early. But it's not unusual. Richo, you've seen it, been a part of it. I've seen it, been a part of it. Some personal trainers will go and do that. They'll go and go, well, I'm a Cert 4 now. I like the gym. Sports is my background. I'm going to go align myself with an amateur sports team, a local sporting club, the foot club, the whatever. I'll turn up there with some tires and some sled and some ropes. I'm going to run them through a session. That's not the scope of a personal trainer unless they set that up from day one, which I'm guaranteeing you 99% of you listening and the ones that that should be listening haven't fucking done this. So if you've got your Cert 4 and you've gone and aligned yourself with a football team or a netball team or a dance team or potentially even a boot camp, you could have opened up a can of worms if something goes bad.
Yeah, I mean, doing those things or having a PT that's going out there and trying to drum up business, certainly if it's like their early time of running their business, just looking for any sort of source of income, like power to you. It's awesome that you're out there at least trying to work instead of just sitting at the gym or sitting at home going, do I need some leads? No, you go and wait at the gym and you talk to people, you try and network and get some customers or some clients.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do that, you need to make sure that you talk to your insurer or your broker and you find out, is that covered? Is that excluded? What's the limitations of my cover? Yeah.
Yeah. Mate, I honestly think this is something that while probably doesn't require its own module, I'd like to think that something I'm going to be talking to you about with our 51 Fit students is to say, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here as well, but you've completed your Cert 4s, there's your certificate of completion, but before I issue with your actual certificate 4, you're going to have to sit through this 10-minute conversation or this half an hour webinar or vlog, so at least their brains are fucking switched onto this kind of stuff, because this is one of a handful of key areas I believe that the industry is failing people that are achieving the Cert 4 is to understand the importance of insurance, not just a cookie cutter, whatever's been recommended by the course provider, but also having this conversation early might even open up or help establish the things we've already talked about with developing a niche, understanding your limitations, developing a network. So yeah, good job, man. This is, I think, a lot of information the kind of information we need to get out there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's other avenues that we can consider as well, like the position of how, if you're a gym owner, if you have PTs that work underneath you as contractors and you take their copies of their certificates of currency every year, you need to make sure that they are within the scope, not just to make them be allowed to come into the gym and work and obviously pay their weekly fees or however that structure works, but to know that they're covered for that as well. In case something happens to them, you're the head contractor, it's going to come back on the gym owner. So you need to make sure that, So yeah,
it's really cool. So we've had some feedback and some contact recently from people that aren't just PTs. It's really good to see. And if you're listening to those folks, awesome. Keep up. Thanks for letting us know. But what's really cool is we're getting people that have been in the industry for beyond 12 months, taking a lot of value from this. So I'm confident this episode today, Brad, is going to be one of those ones. I know a bunch of
big time
long-time PTs that really should listen to this, and hopefully they get as much out of it that we have, and put some shit into action. And again, I've said it, guys, if you're starting to watch and listen to us, hopefully you've realized we're not full of shit and we are actually out for your best interest.
This is exactly why we cut Nate. I mean, he just
that's why Nate's not here.
And Nate's gone. Nate's out.
I love that. Why we can't Nate?
Yes.
It's a thing.
Why we
now.
can't Nate.
Yeah, right.
So-
That's why Nate's cut. He only has his own big four-headed interest, and he's gone. He's out.
So
Wow,
we're gonna link you in the notes, Brad, and on the YouTube, and when we drop it on Insta as well. So if anyone gets through the episode and they get to this stage, look, take it from me, Brad's a stand-up dude. I think even if Brad can't service you as a client, he'll definitely point you in the right direction. So it's not like a loaded, hey, let's go fill up Brad's sales funnel. This is I just rate the guy highly, and I think you're going to get great advice from him one way or the other. And part of the network of professionals that I'd certainly recommend for people to get out there and fucking connect with. So
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you.
awesome, man. I appreciate your time, Brad. Thanks for. It's fucking late on a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
You're up here doing this with us.
What is it? 10, like 5 to 10. Yeah.
So,
So good. It's worth it. It's odd talking to you guys because I sort of sit there and I'll listen or watch the podcast and I'll hear you guys talking and slinging shit at each other. And I think this is pretty funny. But actually, talking to you, it's very different. It's cool. So yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Mate, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. Very much
Not
appreciated.
at all.
good on you, Brad.
All the best, guys.
Good on you,
All the
Richard.
best.
Thanks, mate.
That's us.
That's us,
There you
mate.
go, guys.
Episode 17's in the bag, and we'll come at you next week. This should drop by Saturday. Right on, guys.
Perfect.
Take it
See you
easy.
guys.
Cheers.